Hello guys, welcome back to another YouTube video. In this video, I'm actually going to tell you the ultimate guide for learning any subject, whether it be your ordinary level, whether it be your advanced level, right? This could work for biology, physics, chemistry, whatever. However, I'm going to focus more on biology because that is my area of expertise. So in this ultimate framework of learning any subject, it consists of three main pillars as you can see on this board: understanding, active recall, and spaced repetition. You know, many people have said this again and again, you would have heard it from different channels. But actually, I'm going to do something new in this video where I'm going to show you an example, a live demonstration, if you say so, of how you actually do each component, why each component is done, and how you can do it better. Right? So that's why I call this an ultimate guide, because it takes you from A to Z. So actually, in this process, this understanding and active recall can come together. We call this process known as encoding. So how do you actually do this encoding? So encoding, you might think it sounds something like a computer program. However, fret not. I'm going to explain to you how this encoding thing is actually done. It might sound complicated, but once I show you how it is done, it will be very easy. So likewise, I'm going to go through each component, the encoding part and the spaced repetition. So technically it's not a 3-pillar framework, it is a 2-pillar framework. So once we are done with this, I'm also going to add a tutorial on how to use Anki. So that is the spaced repetition program that I use and that I'm planning to implement to my students. So if you are actually here just for that tutorial, you can skip to that part, which I will put in a YouTube description. However, I recommend you watch every single minute of this video from the beginning all the way to the tutorial, because more than just knowing Anki, I would prefer if you understood exactly why we do each component and how does Anki fit into this bigger picture. Alright, so I recommend you to start from the beginning to the end, and if this video helped, do not forget to subscribe, like, and share it to somebody who might benefit from this. So now we can move on to this actual first process known as encoding. So like I said, the first process that I'm going to teach you is encoding. So before we go on to the details about encoding, what is encoding? Encoding is the information that is present in your book should go to your brain. That's all. The information that is present in your book should go to your brain. That is the meaning of encoding. So how do you do this encoding? So there are many ways somebody does this encoding. So when you take a phone number, when somebody is telling you a phone number, okay, not 77747474321, then you're saying, okay, not 77747474321, not 77747474321, not 77747474321. That is encoding. Why? Because you saw a list of numbers or you heard a list of numbers and now you're trying to commit to memory. So that is encoding. So keep that encoding in mind and tell me, after let's say 5 minutes, will you still remember that phone number? No. But at the moment when you repeated those numbers again and again, you were able to remember that phone number. So even in encoding, there are different levels to it. Most of the students, what they do is they do a type of encoding where they keep reading the same text again and again and again. So they read a sentence, and they close the book and try to, memorize the sentence. Then they read the next sentence and try to memorize the next sentence. So at that moment when they read the sentence, yes, they will remember it. Why? Because they just read that sentence. So that is also encoding, yes. But as you can see, that encoding is very poor encoding, because it will not retain in your memory for a longer time, but rather it will disappear from your memory within half an hour to 1 hour. That is why when you study something in the morning using poor methods, by your night or in the evening, you will surely forget it. So how does someone do high quality encoding? Encoding to the point where it actually sticks in your head and you are capable of explaining that concept to someone else. So right now, before I'm going to tell you the different steps of encoding, I'm going to show you a live demonstration. Okay, try to learn this paragraph with me and how I will use encoding to remember this content. Alright, so then the first sentence, the stomach is a J-shaped dilated sac in the abdominal cavity. So that is the first sentence. So what most people would do, okay, stomach, J-shaped sac, okay, abdominal cavity, let's go to the next sentence. No, that is wrong. You should be able to encode each and every sentence. I'm using encode word a lot, no? Let me show you how it is done. The stomach, okay? This is the stomach. J-shaped dilated sac. So why are they saying it is a J-shaped dilated sac? So show it to me. Alright. If I look at the stomach, alright, if I draw a J like this, yes, it looks quite similar to a J, alright. A J-shaped dilated sac. Okay. Why is it dilated? Dilated means it is quite large, you know, it has become big. So if you compare with a normal tube-like structure that is present here, maybe the esophagus, it is a bit narrow. But compare that with the stomach, it is dilated. Okay, it is big. Alright, that's why it's called dilated. Abdominal cavity. What is an abdominal cavity? Okay, the empty space that is present in your abdominal area is the abdominal cavity. So, if you are not sure of what an abdominal cavity is, now since I know abdominal cavity, I'm just stopping there. But if you are somebody who is hearing that term for the first time, go to a new tab. If you are learning on a computer or a phone, go to a new tab, search abdominal cavity and look at some Google images. Then each and every word in this sentence, you have a nice picture associated with it, so that now not only will you get some knowledge while reading the sentence, as you are reading the sentence, you will have a memory of an image linked to it. So when that happens, even if you can't remember the exact sentence, the memory of this image will help you remember that sentence. Alright. Then, the inner surface of the stomach is highly folded and contains large number of pits that leads to gastric glands. So inner surface of the stomach is highly folded. Okay, so what does that mean? Alright, now since I have in my tude for the students, I have given all the images, but in the resource book these images are not there now. So then what you are supposed to do is, you are supposed to go to the internet and search. Alright, so let's say you search the internet, and what you will do, you will zoom in. Okay, they said that the inner wall is highly folded. Yes, I can see that there are foldings present inside the inner wall. Okay, this is what they probably meant. Alright, now come back to that. The inner surface of the stomach is highly folded, alright, the highly folded part is present, and contains large number of pits that lead to gastric glands. Okay, what does that mean? I don't see any pits here. I don't see any pits here. Look at this. They have taken this part of the image and they have enlarged it. Now I can see the pits. Alright, so that means the stomach inner wall is folded, yes. But in that folding itself, it is not a smooth folding. It is having many holes in it. And these are those holes. And those holes extend downwards. Okay, so what do you call these holes? A large number of pits. So this must be the pit that they are talking about. Yes, here, gastric pit. So this must be the pit that they are talking about. That leads to gastric glands. Okay, where are the glands? Here you can see lining of cells that form this tubular structure. Alright, so this must be the gland. So let me try and link this back here. So that means the pits must be on the inner surface there, and the glands must have gone inside. So it will not only be found here, it will be found throughout this inner wall. Okay, alright. Gastric glands. Then gastric glands consist of 3 types of cells. Okay, shall we see whether we can see the 3 types of cells? No. So then in this situation, in my image, the 3 types of cells are not given. So what should you do? You should go to the internet and search mucus cell, chief cell and parietal cell and see whether those images are there. But it is not there. That is why I haven't put it. If I would have put it. Alright, so that means in this gastric glands, you might have the mucus cells, chief cells and parietal cells here. Okay, and whatever content that these cells are creating, they probably put it into this gland. Okay, that's how glands work, no? Right, these cells are present here and they will put whatever substance that they secrete into this gland, and then from this gland it will come out through the pit. Okay, now it makes sense. Alright, then the stomach wall is very elastic. Wait, we saw something else regarding the wall, no? The inner surface of the stomach wall is highly folded. Okay, now if something is folded, it is capable of stretching out to become smooth. So if something is folded, it is capable of being stretched out to be smooth. Maybe that is why the stomach wall is very elastic. Why should a stomach wall be elastic? What is the purpose of a stomach? Let's try to think. Okay, when we eat something, the food goes into the stomach, no? Okay, so when we eat a lot, it should ensure that the stomach can, hold a lot of food without getting too stretched. Okay, that's why it has to be elastic. Alright, so then we can actually link these two information, no? Highly folded with the stomach wall being very elastic. Right. Okay. Then next sentence. distal part of the stomach connects with the small intestine. Okay, what is the distal? Distal means the further part, no? So over here, this must be the distal part. Connects with the small intestine. So this must be the duodenum. Duodenum, I remember, that is the small intestine. So distal part of the stomach is connecting with the small intestine. Okay. Sphincters are found at the junction between esophagus and stomach and the small. What are these sphincters? Okay, then you search. What is a sphincter? Right. When you search for the sphincter, you will see that these are certain muscles that are present in these junctions to regulate the passage of substances. Okay, so you search that in Google. Right. So the sphincters are found at the junction between esophagus and stomach, that you will call it as a cardiac sphincter, and stomach and the small intestine. Okay. So here esophagus, here stomach. So the sphincter that is present here only should be called as the cardiac sphincter. Why is it called the cardiac sphincter? Cardiac means heart. So the heart is up now, so the up part of the stomach should have the cardiac sphincter. So you can use any memory techniques to remember it like that. Then stomach and the small intestine. Okay, here you have the stomach and the small intestine, and this part is known as the pyloric sphincter. Okay. Right. So what is the purpose of this sphincter? You search to regulate substances. Why does it need to regulate substances? Okay, so when you're eating something, those same stuff from your stomach doesn't come out, no? But sometimes it does come, no, when you're vomiting. Okay, I need to ask somebody about that. Why? So if the sphincters are present, why do we vomit? Then you ask that question either to an AI or to your teacher or whatever. Ask that question. Sir or madam or AI, ChatGPT, why do we vomit even though we have the presence of cardiac sphincter? These are higher levels of thinking which is helping you think further than this paragraph. Okay? Anyways. Right. So small intestine, pyloric. This is to regulate the substances. Okay. They are made up of circular smooth muscle cells. So why does it have to be circular smooth muscle cells? So then this one you had to search. Okay, but since I know, I will tell. Here the circular smooth muscle cells are arranged in a circle, so that when they contract, it will reduce the size of the lumen. Then it can act as a sphincter which regulates the passage of substances. Okay, right. That's it here. The sphincters help regulate the passage of material. Okay. Now, in that example, I have encoded very clearly. Why? How was I able to encode? If you notice, what are the things that I did? I asked first, why is this taking place? So when they talk about the stomach is a J-shaped dilated sac, okay, before I asked why, they are talking about the structure, no? Then I am asking, okay, show me that structure. If you are saying it's a J-shape, show me that J-shape. And then I see the J-shape. If you are saying it's a dilated sac, show me that dilated sac. Then I am seeing the dilated sac. Abdominal cavity, show me the abdominal cavity. Obviously, it takes time. You have to put in effort to encode. Or you can do the weak method and say, stomach is a J-shaped dilated sac in the abdominal cavity. Stomach is a J-shaped dilated sac in the abdominal cavity. Stomach is a low. Like that you can say, and low effort, weak encoding, which you will forget by the time you have dinner. Alright. So, each and every sentence, I found a reason as to why it exists and how it is related to the previous content. Okay, so I have created a rough framework on how is this supposed to happen. So I can show you here. Here. Right. Here you can see my methods of encoding, right? So I have simplified it so that you all also can understand. Why? Why is something taking place? Why is the stomach a dilated sac? How? How is something taking place? So in the, how? Circular smooth muscles. How is a circular smooth muscle acting as a sphincter? So I'm asking those questions and I'm trying to get answers to them. Show. Okay, you're saying stomach is a J-shaped sac. I want to see it, whether it's a J-shaped sac. You're saying the stomach has gastric pits. Show me the gastric pits. You're telling me the stomach has gastric glands. Show me the gastric glands. That is how you encode, right? So that is one method of encoding, or the first step of encoding, you can say. Why, how, show. Second one is known as mapping of concepts. So now here what did I learn? Only stomach. So obviously I can't show you, I can't study the entire digestive system for a YouTube video, no? So how will I do this mapping of concepts? So for a single paragraph for stomach, mapping the concepts is quite difficult. But imagine if I learned the entire digestive system at at once. So now today I'm learning the digestive system. So digestive system, what does it contain? Mouth, then tongue, the oral cavity, pharynx, then the esophagus, stomach, small intestine, large intestine, rectum, anus, everything is there. So each of it has its own function, each of it has its own structure. I forgot the associated glands. Liver is there, pancreas is there, right? So each of it has its own functions and structure. So how will I map these concepts? So if I am the person who is studying this, what I would do is, I will draw a man. Let's take a large A4 paper and I will draw a man with the digestive system like this. Then I will put an arrow onto the oral cavity. Okay, this is the structure of the oral cavity. This is the function of the oral cavity. Then to the esophagus, this is the structure of the esophagus. This is the function of the esophagus. Then instead of having just pages in your head, instead of when you're reading a paragraph, you go from left to right, top to bottom, rather than having just a bunch of text to look at. When you are mapping all these concepts conceptually into a framework or a map, you will see how each information links to the bigger picture. That linking is very, very important for encoding. All right, so you start with why, how, show to understand each paragraph properly. Then if you're learning an entire system at once, then you map these concepts. How is each of these related to the previous one? How is the stomach related to the intestine? Okay, stomach also has protein digestion. Intestine also has protein digestion. So how is those two different? So you are comparing, you are analyzing, you are creating, you are illustrating, you are drawing. So you see, you are doing multiple things rather than just reading from left to right, top to bottom. All right. So that is mapping concepts. So now third method you can do is categorization. So categorization, now for example, this works when you have a long list of some things that you need to remember. For example, a good example I can give for this would be when you are learning Unit 4. When you're learning Unit 4, you will learn about the different phylums of plants and each characteristics. No? So in my opinion, how you are supposed to do that would be categorize them. In your resource book, it is already categorized, but how would you categorize it? Maybe you start with vascular plants, non-vascular plants. Then you write down all the non-vascular plants. Then you write seeded plants, seedless plants. Then you write flowering under seeded plants and non-flowering. And under each you write the phylum. And under each you write the structure and function. Then what happens? Again, now you will not get confused. Okay, was bryophyta vascular or non-vascular? Was coniferophyta vascular or seedless? So many questions might come into your head. So now once you have it in a conceptual map and you have categorized each component, you will be able to know where do you find each concept. In that way, you will not get this phenomenon known as interference. So sometimes when people study the same topic, like for example, if you are studying the digestion of proteins and the digestion of carbohydrates, sometimes people can get the enzymes mixed up. Why? Because they read the paragraph left to right, top to bottom. But once you have conceptually arranged each of these concepts onto an A4 paper, you will be able to easily remember, okay, this enzyme is for protein, this enzyme is for carbohydrate. Alright, so keep in mind, you should always learn each paragraph as why, how, show. Map these concepts by creating a mind map. Categorize them. Okay, vascular plants, seedless plants, seeded plants, like that. Last one is mnemonic. So like how you would memorize phone numbers, 0773727, like that. There are certain things in biology, but very few. There are certain things in medicine also, that is quite a lot, where you have bunch of lists where you must memorize. There is no reason, or the reason is too complicated and it will take too much time to memorize that reason or to learn that reason. For example, in biology, we have the vitamins and mineral deficiency. Vitamin deficiency, you technically can find the reason. Let's say the mineral deficiency in plants and in animals. So those are lists which you need to memorize. So then in that instance, you can find out a memory technique or mnemonic. For example, to remember the essential elements in living beings, if you are my student, you would know what is the mnemonic I use. Ochanka Pakisna Kulmut. So that is something I created when I was studying in 2020, I think. Right? And I still remember that same mnemonic. That is also a method of encoding. So now I have not only told you what encoding is, I have also showed you how encoding is done and why you do it in each way. So now can you all honestly tell me, maybe in the comments, whether you actually studied, whether you actually encoded in this way, or did you just read left to right? Alright. Now, once you have done all of this, you can put it all together like, the final nail in the coffin to ensure that this information has properly been encoded into your brain by Feynman technique. So let's say that you study the digestive system. Imagine that you're teaching it to a stranger. Start all the way from the oral cavity to the anus. Go structure function. Tell them, okay, see, in proteins this was the enzyme used, in carbohydrates this was the enzyme used. Don't mix them up. Like how you will teach now, like how I'm teaching you all, you have to pretend to teach it to a bunch of students. If you are able to teach it without looking, you should not look, without looking, that means you have encoded that entire unit or entire fact properly. Alright, so if you're able to do this, I'm sure if you did each of this in the following manner which I told you, finally you will be able to put it together by the Feynman technique. Alright, this is the ultimate guide for encoding. So once this is done, the content that you learned will surely be present in your brain. However, no matter how well you encode something, you will forget it. That is a flaw in human brain. There is nothing we can do about it. No matter how well you encode, you will forget it. That is why in the next step we are going to talk about the importance of spaced repetition. However, keep in mind, when you encode it in this manner, the duration that you will remember the content is longer. For example, remember that phone number example I told you, 0 like that. You will be able to remember it for 5 to 10 minutes tops. But if you study the digestive system in this manner, you might remember it maybe tomorrow, day after even. Maybe day after tomorrow even. So for 3 days you will be able to remember just if you did the encoding properly. However, as we all know, the memory keeps forgetting. No matter how well you encoded something, it will go from 100%, slowly you will forget stuff that were weak in your opinion, and then you will come back to eventually 0. So that is why the next step is also very important. Encoding is very important. It should be done really well in this manner that I have demonstrated, and spaced repetition, which is the next step that we are going to talk about, is also very important. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to the next topic, which is spaced repetition. For you to understand why spaced repetition works, you need to look at something known as the Ebbinghaus forgetting curve. So this is the Ebbinghaus forgetting curve. So now we learned the structure of the stomach now. So now once we learned it, that is day 0, the day that we learned it, it is at 100%. So now tomorrow, day after tomorrow, and the day after tomorrow, we don't review that again. So we think, okay, we learned it on this day, so therefore it has to stay with us forever. But notice, whatever that you memorized or encoded in your brain slowly deteriorates over time. Slowly deteriorates over time, with the largest drop being in the first day. Close to 50% of the content that you encoded, you will forget as you pass on in time, especially on the first day. So then what are you supposed to do? You need to do something known as retrieval practice. Retrieval practice is on that day, for example, on the first day. Now, on the first day, what you're supposed to do would be, let's say you learned the digestive system, without looking at the book, without reading the book, you have to Feynman technique, or tell it out, or say it in your own words, or write a summary on everything you know about the digestive system. Once you write whatever you know about the digestive system, or whatever you remember, or whatever you got from your encoding yesterday, you will see that there are certain gaps in your knowledge. Then what are you supposed to do? Those gaps in your knowledge, you first try to think, okay, why is there a gap in that knowledge? Why don't I remember that function, or why don't I remember that structure? And then you spend a good 1 or 2 minutes thinking about it. Okay, you couldn't find the answer. Then only you open the textbook and check what you missed. Why? While you're thinking about what you missed, you are priming your brain. Priming your brain means you are creating a situation in your brain where now your brain will be hungry for that knowledge. Okay, what did I miss? What did I miss? Right? And it will go and check. it will help or it will remember it more when you check it. Okay, so that's called priming your brain. So when it is time to go and check the mistakes that you have made by opening the textbook, then you will get that aha moment. Oh, this is what I forgot. Okay, then what are you supposed to do? All right, this is what you forgot, you know. Then you try to identify the problem. Why did I forget this? Is this because I did not understand this properly? Or is it because I don't know where to link this? Then that is your next step. You need to make sure, or you need to find a way to link that concept into whatever you remember. Or if you did not understand it, you first need to try to understand that concept and then you link it to whatever you remember. That is the purpose of the spaced retrieval. So when you retrieve something again and again over time, so on the first day, then maybe the fourth day, then maybe the seventh day, then maybe the 14th day. So likewise, the time between each review increases. So by the time you reach maybe the 10th or 12th review, that concept will be mastered. It will be there in your long-term memory. So what are you trying to do in this is to convert that information from short-term memory to long-term memory. That is spaced repetition. Now, where does Anki fit into this spaced repetition? If you take this spaced repetition, right, you are learning digestive system in this example, so you are learning one topic. So one topic, you can see that the graph is very easy to maintain, okay? One topic, so I have to study 3 days later, then 7 days later, then 14 days later, you can remember. But you never study just one topic, no, you study multiple, hundreds if not 200s of topics. Imagine maintaining a manual spaced repetition timetable for each topic for more than 200 topics. That would be a disaster. Sometimes you will forget, sometimes you will miss reviews. That is why you have Anki, right? In Anki, what it does is, Anki has an algorithm which creates the reviews based on your memory. So in Anki, you will have options like it will show you a fact, right? It will show you a fact and ask you, okay, whether you remember this fact. It will question you. And then when you answer that question, you have 4 options. Either you press easy, good, hard, or again. So based on your options, it will decide, okay, you have to study this 1 day later, or you have to study this 7 days later. So based on your memory, it will decide this spaced repetition program for you. That is Anki. So don't think that Anki is this magical thing that will make all your dreams come true. No. Anki is this spaced repetition program. So to make Anki work properly, the encoding should be done right. Once the encoding is done right, only the spaced repetition should happen properly. So you can do spaced repetition manually, but it is a big hassle. That is why I am trying to implement Anki into our learning program. Alright, so this is spaced repetition. So like I told you just now, you can see what happens in a review. So if you are using manual methods of tracking, right? If you can't remember the content, there is 2 reasons. One thing is the encoding was done poorly. That means when you learned the content, you did not learn it properly. That means there are certain facts that have been missed, where you did not go into much detail on learning the why and the how and the show. Okay, or you reviewed too late. So now, this encoding that was done poorly, nothing can solve that except you. You only have to go and search the internet. You only have to ask your teachers and colleagues to fix that, to learn that, to understand. However, this review too late or reviewing too early, that problem is the one that can be fixed by Anki. Right? What Anki does is, Anki makes sure, like I told you previously, it gives you the review just when you're about to forget. So then when you're about to forget, you will recall it, and then again the memory will get strengthened. So this will happen to every single concept that you put onto Anki, and that will maintain your memory all the way until your A-level exam or whatever exam that you are having. Right? So this is how retrieval is done. Okay? So now, next what I'm going to do is, next I'm going to explain what happens after this. So you encoded properly. Then you your space repetition also you did properly. Then what? Then how does this translate to actual exam results? That is the one that I'm going to talk about next. Right. So when you take any exams, these are the levels that are available for questioning. The base would be remember. So that is the one that requires the least amount of mental effort. They will ask you to state 1 function of the stomach, state 2 functions of vitamin A. Those are the type of questions that come on the base. Then you have understand, the second level of the taxonomy. Describe, explain. So this is the one that mainly comes in our essays. Describe the process of urine formation, explain phloem translocation. So these are the questions that come in the second level. Third one would be illustrate. So for example, they tell you to draw the structure of the plasma membrane. So then you are supposed to map the concepts that was inside your head. So if you studied the structure of the plasma membrane, then you should know, okay, phospholipids come like this, integral proteins come like this, transmembrane proteins comes like this, glycolipids come like this, glycoproteins comes like this. So then you should know the structure properly, and that knowledge of the structure comes from you learning it and encoding it well. Then fourth level would be compare, contrast. This rarely comes in the essays because it's a bit difficult to answer. However, certain structured essay questions, they do ask us to compare. But majority of the questions in our A-level syllabus is always from these two levels in biology. In physics and chemistry, yes, of course, they go all the way till analyze. But in biology, remember and understand is where they usually stop. So now this is the way that questions are asked in biology. So then why is biology difficult when they are asking the two basic questions? That is because biology has a lot of things to ask from. It has a large syllabus. You have to remember almost everything, right? Okay. So then we encoded properly, we reviewed it properly, so the content should be in our head now. So then can we go and directly write the exam? Yes, you can technically go and directly write the exam. But to be on the safe side, what are you supposed to do? Practice, practice, practice. So once you have encoded and reviewed things, content properly, then you start doing these term papers, school papers, past papers, and see what mistakes are you making practically. Okay, you are not writing the keywords, or maybe you're writing answers that are too long, maybe you're writing answers that are too short, maybe you don't know how to answer for that specific question. So then that techniques, all of that you will get from doing more papers again and again. So when you take technically for A-level subjects, you do not need to go for theory classes. Theory classes, all the theory can be learned in the present day using AI and the internet and free resources on YouTube. Everything can be learned in these three ways. However, going for a paper class can actually be beneficial, because that is where you can actually test whether what you learned using these methods are applied practically for you to get marks. So whether your knowledge is getting converted to marks, you can check in that situation. So however, that mainly applies for physics and chemistry, because in biology, if you know, you know. But in physics and chemistry, sometimes you can understand, okay, maybe you know Newton's third law very well, but when it comes to a question, you're not able to answer it. Right? So especially for physics and chemistry, you do need paper practice. Biology also, yes, it is better safe than sorry. So after you learn everything properly, you can finally cement it all to get the highest marks possible by doing questions again and again. So if you are one of my 2027 batch students, then you know we have that complete revision questions. So if you do those complete revision questions along with this learning, then you are sorted. If you are a 28 batch student, you know we get weekly papers. So if you do these weekly papers along with this Anki and the encoding that is done, if you do it properly, then you are also sorted. Right? So you should understand learning, encoding, retrieval, and finally paper practice. So when you do all these three for any subjects, not only in the science stream, maybe the commerce stream, art stream, any stream, this is the fundamental three basic steps or pillars which is needed for you to get the highest marks possible. In my opinion, this is the same thing that I use for university as well, and it has done me well so far. Alright, so then now we will actually move on to this Anki tutorial. So now we will be moving on from this to maybe a screen recording of the computer, where I will show you how to incorporate these Anki files that I have made for you all, how to put it into the your own Anki app, how to download the Anki app, how to set it up, how to put the correct settings. Everything I will explain it in this tutorial that is to come after this. Right, so this is what you're supposed to do. First thing that you're supposed to do is to download the Anki app. So go on to any web browser that you like, press Anki, download, and then go to the first option here, right? Click on that. Once you click on that, you go to this download Anki, and then you see based on your desktop whether it is a Windows, Mac or Linux, you can download the necessary one. So this is a Windows computer, so I am going to download using Windows. So once you click on that, the Windows it will be downloaded. Then what you can do is go to that Anki launch and open it. So eventually once you open it, you will get the Anki app. So then once you get the Anki app, you open the Anki app, right? You open the Anki app. Once the Anki is open, this is your default screen. This is what you will obtain. So you can see you don't have any questions. However, keep in mind, in this entire Anki program, all the questions will be made by me and given to you. So you don't have to make any questions at all. So you just have to go to our drive link and then download the questions from there. So that's what I'm going to show you now, right? So now you have opened Anki, then you go to the internet and we have the drive link. Go to that drive link and click on the Anki package. So over here you will see Unit 2 Part 1 APKG. That is our Anki, it's called the Anki package, right? That Anki package only we are going to use. So let's download it. I don't know whether APKG stands for Anki package. I am just going to call it an Anki package, right? So once you download it, you open that file. So when you open that file, you will get a screen like this, or you will get a window like this from your Anki app itself. Then in that, what you're supposed to do is, over here you will see two options: import any learning progress, import any tech presets. What you are supposed to do here is only click on this, import any tech presets, right? That's all. After you do that, you click on import. So once you click on import, you will get this screen. You can close that window. Once you close that window, you will get your Anki app, and now you will have these new sets of questions, right? Now, how are we supposed to study now? Before we move on to studying, there is still one more settings change that needs to be done. So what you are supposed to do is, you go to these settings, click on these settings, go to options. Once you go to options here in this window or in this tab, click on the downward arrow, choose A level biology. Okay, once that is choose, now go to the save button. Don't click on the save button, click on the downward arrow next to the save button, and under here there is something known as save to all subjects. Click on save to all subjects, right? One more thing, to go to these settings. So these settings needs to be changed. So we go to options, and in that options you will see this tab here. Click on that tab. Once you click on that tab, you have two options. One is default or A-level biology. Choose the A-level biology option. Then scroll down. Once you scroll down, you will see this option known as FSRS. Okay, FSRS. Click on that FSRS, right? After that, don't do anything else. Once you clicked on that FSRS, you will see there are so many complicated settings. Don't worry about any of that, because all those settings I have set it perfectly for A-level studies, and even I am also using the same settings. So once you click on that, all you have to do is go to this button over here. Next to save, you will see this downward arrow. Click on that downward arrow, go to this option known as save to all subjects. Click on that save to all subjects. So once that occurs, you will get this, and then all you have to do is, now you can expand this deck. If you press on the plus icon, then you will see Unit 2 Part 1. Then you click on this Unit 2 Part 1, press on study now, and you can learn. So for example, let me show you how the learning is supposed to occur. What percentage of living matter is made up of oxygen, carbon, hydrogen and nitrogen? So let's say you know the answer very well, which is 96%. You press space, and then you have four options. One is again, hard, good, easy. So if you remember this properly, then what you are supposed to do is, you are supposed to press good. If you did not remember this, you need to press again. So let's say it took you a long time, let's say like a minute or 2 minutes, and finally you got the answer, then you are supposed to press hard. I recommend only using good or again. If you got the answer, press good. If you didn't get the answer, press again. Some people, what they do is, they press hard if they don't remember the answer. No, you should not do that. You should only press hard when you got the answer, but it took you time to get there. If you didn't get the answer, always press again. So that's all you have to do. You study, okay, if you understood, press good, or if you answered, press good. And then next one, okay, if you did not know this answer, press again. This one, if you knew the answer, press good. This one, oh, it took you a long time to tell the answer, press hard. So first you read the question. This is known as the front of the card. You read the question and then in your mind you think of the answer. And then you press space to see whether that is the same answer that you see on the back of the card. This is considered to be the back of the card. Okay, so once that is done, all right, you keep doing these questions. So there are 160 now. You keep doing these questions as much as you can. So as you can see, there were many options. 1 day later, 2 days later, 5 days later. So what happens is 2 days later, those questions that you put for 2 days later will come again. And then you are supposed to do this. So every morning what you're supposed to do is always open up your Anki app and see whether you have any reviews to do. If you have reviews to do, always do the reviews. Every day you need to spend at least half an hour to finish your reviews. So your job should be, at the end of the day, the number of new cards should be 0. Number of learn cards should be 0. Number of due cards should be 0. So what does that mean? You have done all the cards for the day. So this is how you're supposed to install Anki and do the questions on a computer. So next thing that I'm going to show you will be how to do it on a phone. Okay, I'm going to choose an Android phone to do it. So we will move on to that next. I'm going to show you how you can download the Anki app and put those cards using an Android tablet or Android phones. First go to Play Store. You can search Anki Droid app, and the first option with this symbol, that would be the actual app. So you download it, and then once you download it, you can open it. Right, so then this is what you will get. Usually collection is empty because this is the first time that you have downloaded the app. Then, as I told you, I will upload the Anki questions all in the Google Drive. So all you will have to do is go to my Google Drive and then go to that specific Anki part. Here you can see you should be able to download it. You press on download. So once you downloaded, now press open. So here you will get an option with what you can open it with. So you can open it with Anki Droid. So press just one. So then add. So then here you will have the options, import any learning progress, import any deck presets. In that, click on import any deck presets and then press import and then write. Then you go press this back arrow over here and then you will go to the main screen. And as you can see, again same issue from the previous one, where even though I have uploaded 170 cards, you only have 20 cards shown here. So what can you do? You long press on this. Okay, go to this option known as deck options. Press on that deck options. Once you go to the deck options, here you see you will have multiple choices. One is A-level biology and the other one is default. Press on A-level biology. Go down, you will have this FSRS button. Here FSRS button. If it is toggled off, switch it on. If it is on, then you keep it as it is. Alright. Then here these are known as easy days. I don't know why it came as this. Put everything to normal. All these bars, put it all to normal. Right, then you don't have to do anything else except now go to this part where you see the save option here. Press the downward arrow next to the save option and press save to all subdecks. Now again, once you press save to all subdecks, now you can see it has jumped from 20 to 165 cards. Now you have completely set up your cards. You don't have anything to worry about. Then you press on the unit 2 part 2. Here you have the option called study. Press on study. And again same questions will come. What percentage of living matter is made up of oxygen, carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen? Then you think about the correct answer. Okay, you have the answer. Then you press show answer and see you have the options. Easy, good, hard, again. So then you choose which one is suitable for you. If you got it in the first try, then press good. Likewise, you keep going. Show answer, okay, again show. Right, this one I couldn't remember, so hard. So that is how you continue doing your Anki cards. So likewise, I will be sending new decks every few weeks.
So from unit 2 part 1 all the way till unit 5 part 5, that's all we have done from 27 and 28 batch. So then you have to do these questions regularly. You have to every day at least spend a few minutes to ensure that you have completed all your reviews. Like I said previously, here there should be totally 0 at the end of the day. That means you have done everything. So then that is it regarding the setting up of Anki and how to put all these questions, how to do these questions. And in the beginning part of the video I told you what is the purpose of doing it in this way and how you're actually supposed to incorporate this Anki into your program. So please, if you follow this framework, if you follow this method, I'm sure you will succeed in your A-level examination, O-level examination, or whatever examination. So these Anki cards actually can be used by yourself, like you can make your own questions, but for my students I'll be making the questions and providing. So for the ones who will be making their own questions, maybe to study some other subjects, these are the current options that I use. If you want, you can take a screenshot and set up your own Anki in this manner. Okay, so I'm scrolling through it so that you can see the options that I use. So you can use the same options, you can use the same options for your learning as well, right? So you can make your own questions. There are different types of questions. There are basic cards, image occlusions, close deletions. So if you are actually planning, if you have time and if you're actually planning to learn more about Anki, I do recommend you to check out YouTube channel called Anking, Ali Abdal. Go and check their videos on how to actually use Anki further. But for this A-level biology students or my students, I will provide you the questions myself, so you don't have to learn anything about Anki. Just press on the questions and do the questions and do the usual weekly papers and other papers that I provide you. That will be more than enough. So if you have actually made it to the end of the video, thank you very much for joining us, and I hope this has benefited you in some way, and I will see you all soon.